Welcome back to Wake Up, Catalyzing Consciousness. Today we're actually in the Cotswolds with dear friend and colleague Joe St Clair. I've known Joe for quite a few years when we first met when Joe was managing director of the Laszlo Institute of New Paradigm Research. More recently, Joe, you've become the director of the World Sustainable Development Forum, which is a global organization, and you're heading up the UK division of that, correct?
Correct, yes. Yeah.
And Joe has, for the past two years, been one of the most preeminent researchers in the UK into 5G. So we're now speaking during this time of quarantine here in the UK, and we are all very aware of the coronavirus and the impact that it's having globally. This silent virus, which is such a threat to us, I would say compares to what we're looking at right now with the proliferation of 5G technology. So I've asked Joe to sit down with us, and I've said I want to ask the questions that I, as someone who's anticipating this turn on of 5G, I live in Italy, so this seems to be imminent. I want to know what we're looking at, what we're faced with right now. So Joe, could you just illuminate for us, from your research, what are the primary dangers associated with this new technology that we're all going to be exposed to, really, like it or not?
Well, let me start by talking about the situation we've got at the moment. There's a big connection, okay, between the coronavirus and the proliferation of 5G across the globe. And the main thing that connects it is invisibility. People across the world are dying in large numbers from the coronavirus, and this is something that you can't actually visibly see with the human eye. And yet we know exactly what it can do to our bodies and our immune systems. And it's very, very similar with electromagnetic frequencies, and particularly the proliferation of 5G. So if you can just imagine for a moment that the coronavirus was visible as a kind of yellow fog, then if you were out walking with friends or visiting relations or anything, and you saw patches of this yellow fog, you could avoid it. You would know yellow fog means dangerous to health. It means poisonous. It means toxic. But we can't see it, and it's the same with 5G. 5G is completely invisible, and over the years we have come to think that what's invisible isn't really there. If it's not there, it's not a danger to us. We can see, we can see a tiger jumping out of a bush, but we can't see a 5G frequency beaming down upon us, more than we can see a coronavirus.
You could compare this to electricity. I mean, you can't see electricity, but if you stick your finger in the wall socket, you're going to be electrocuted.
Yeah.
So we do know that electricity, though invisible, is in fact dangerous.
Yeah.
So we need to learn to equate the kind of electromagnetic frequencies. There are many other invisible frequencies that our biology, our human bodies are being assaulted by, that we're simply not conscious of the danger of.
Absolutely right. And the thing with the coronavirus is it acts very, very quickly. It's a very, very contagious disease, which means that when you're exposed to it, it's only a few days before you start developing symptoms, before you get a fever, before you get a cough, and you start having breathing difficulties. So there's this huge, huge need to get it under control, which is quite correct. When we're talking about electromagnetic frequencies and 5G, it's very, very different. You're not going to feel it instantaneously. You're not going to feel it in the same way you would feel coronavirus flu. It's something that creeps up on your health very, very slowly over many, many years. It's a progressive condition that you won't even know you're suffering from for a long, long time. And I will say, apart from the 1/5 roughly of the population who are what we call electrosensitives, who feel it almost immediately.
And so we've seen this video, for example, from Wuhan, where we see a Chinese man just fall over in the street. My understanding is that's not how the coronavirus progresses. but in fact, there could be a connection between 5G and that kind of collapse. Could you just illuminate for us how that could even be possible if this is something that creeps up on us?
Yeah, I mean, the public are not always getting the full information. We know, for example, that Wuhan has one of the most highest saturations of 5G frequencies than any other city in the world. They've turned on 5G right across a large Chinese city with over 10 million people.
And they did this, what date did they actually turn on the initial 5G?
It was turned on about 2 weeks before the coronavirus broke. And I have to say that I'm not suggesting that there is a connection in that sense. What I am suggesting is we know that 5G frequencies damage immune systems. So under normal circumstances, when we get a common cold, when we get the flu of any kind, our natural immune system has got the ability to defend and help us get over the cold or the flu. When our immune system is being suppressed, it's much, much more difficult for us to fight back.
So just going back to this point where you said the effects of 5G will creep up on us for many years, is it possible that a turn on of 5G can immediately suppress immune system? It will have an effect, an immediate effect, but it won't necessarily be dramatic. It'll still be very slow.
And let's be clear that the electromagnetic frequencies that are of danger to our biological cells are there with 2G, 3G, 4G. It's not that 5G it's a different level of frequencies, but people are suffering today, before 5G is turned on. People are unaware of how much their immune system's been damaged or their cells have been damaged by using 3G and 4G on their mobile phones.
Wow. So I'm interested, we had spoken about this aspect of 5G and its effect on oxygen.
Yeah.
Can you just unpack that a bit for me again?
Yeah, I mean, basically, the 5G is a range of frequencies, and many of them piggyback. That's the term they're using. They piggyback on 4G, and a lot of these we've not been subjected to in the past, apart from actually in warfare, where 5G frequencies have been used as military weapons for crowd dispersal. Because if you point a 5G beam at a bunch of people, they will immediately disperse because they will be getting severe nausea, tinnitus, uncomfortable feelings that they just feel sick and need to get away from it.
Where have we seen that?
It's been used in the Iraq and Afghan war and other places. It's been known about for a long, long time. It's been a military weapon long before it was used for telecoms industry, and it's used in a different way. But going back to your question, when you first become ill, it's not like the pictures we're seeing from China when someone falls flat on their face. Normally, as you know, a flu is something you catch slowly, you get the sniffles, you get a bit of a fever, you feel unwell. You don't fall flat on your face on the pavement, which is what we've seen from a lot of released footage from ordinary people on their mobile phones in China. What we do know is that every frequency has a slightly different effect on our cells. We've got approximately between 40 and 50 trillion cells in the average human body. No one knows the precise number, but that's the best guess, 40 to 50 trillion cells. And electricity and electromagnetic frequencies affect those cells in numerous ways. And I can go back to that in a moment. But what we do know that in one particular frequency, which is just hovering around the 60 gigahertz, this has a peculiar quality that if this particular frequency is aimed at your body, then what it does is it breaks the bonding of the oxygen molecule, and when you breathe in oxygen, what that oxygen is doing is it's merging with the hemoglobin in the bloodstream, and the hemoglobin is taking the oxygen to all the main organs. It's taking the oxygen to the brain and to the heart and to the lungs and to the liver and kidneys so that we can operate as a human being. If you're exposed to the 60 gigahertz frequency, then what it's doing is it's breaking the bonds of the oxygen molecule. What that actually means is it can no longer bond with the hemoglobin. So the oxygen that you're breathing in to feed your organs cannot get to the organs. So immediately you're being starved of oxygen and you will immediately faint. There's no oxygen going in to make the body function. And that is very, very similar to the condition that we've been seeing in some of the video footage.
So this is we're speaking about Wuhan and some of the video footage we've seen there. We also know that the coronavirus, had a huge impact on Milan and the areas around Lombardia, so very close to where I live. And yet we haven't had 5G turn-ons there that we've been informed about. So how do we actually reconcile those differences then in terms of the potential immune system impact?
There's not a clear answer, and I don't really want to surmise on what the situation is. I mean, the official line that we're getting is, of course, that there's a very, very large elderly population in that area. We do know that 5G transmitters and masts are being set up in that area. We don't know yet to what degree they've been turned on. We do know there have been trials.
So they've been testing.
They've been testing, and what we do know from other parts of the world who've done initial trials with 5G before the official turn on, if you like, is it has had extensive damaging implications. In some of the trials, it's been found that insects will fall dead from the sky from 200 meters around the mast. It's known from tests in Australia that the bacteria in the soil are dead. Bees fall from the sky, they get ill, their navigation systems are compromised, birds. And very often in these trials, what we call trials, it becomes obvious that the level of the 5G is too high, and then it's toned down. These are experiments to kind of bring it to a level where it's acceptable to meet the safety standards. But the safety standards is a whole new subject.
Okay, so how can I, as a consumer, as a resident of an area, how can I know that 5G has been turned on or not?
Well, there is a number of websites around the world where you can get an update. Most of the telecoms companies, to be fair, are actually announcing on their websites where they're turning it on and where it's active and where it's still in trial, and you can certainly get that in the UK. I'm not sure how easily it's done in Italy, but I think the bigger point is we do not actually want 5G. We don't actually need 5G, and what I want to make clear to anyone who's listening to this conversation is that all over the world now are anti-5G groups who are rising up. They're writing to their local politicians. They are having demonstrations. But what they're actually asking for is very, very basic and very, very simple. All they are saying to the authorities, to government and to the telecoms companies, all we want is independent trials to show the health and safety implications of these frequencies. So at the moment, we're in a situation where telecoms companies are openly admitting to camera on BBC interviews or other interviews. They're actually, the heads of these organisations are admitting we haven't done any health and safety trials. And yet over 200,000 peer-reviewed, highly respected scientific documents are saying that these frequencies are damaging to health, and we've known it's been damaging to health since the turn of the century.
So why is there such a push to implement a technology that is clearly pejorative and damaging to human, not only human, but also plant, animal, our very health and well-being? Why is there such a push to implement this technology?
To be frank, this is a situation, a global situation of health versus profit. And I can't put it more simply than that. The 5G frequencies are needed if you want to achieve certain technical things. If you want servant robots, if you want driverless cars, if you want instant downloads, if you want speed, if you want artificial intelligence, if you want smart cities, smart motorways, smart anything, smart fridges, you can't achieve that as easily with the old technologies of 3G and 4G. You need 5G. So it's a drive from those companies who want to achieve these goals. They are crying out for 5G in order to achieve these sort of industrial and scientific goals. But the reality is, if we didn't have this demand for this kind of thing, we could sort of develop other ways of achieving the same ends. The problem is that the safety standards which the governments and the telecoms companies are hiding behind, and I use those words correctly, hiding behind, are ridiculed by most experts on electromagnetic radiation. The standards we are bringing in to safeguard you and I are 22 years old before the word 5G had ever even been heard of. They're outdated, they're outmoded, they're unrealistic, and every day more and more health experts and scientists are demanding an independent inquiry into the safety of these things.
Who is pushing this agenda forward right now?
Well, the telecoms companies who are responsible for putting up all the infrastructure, they're putting up the masts, they're putting up all the transmitters, they're doing all the tests, but they are doing it to serve a wider industrial demand for these things. People who want smart cities, people who want smart motorways, people who want to increase the level of fast technologies to give us driverless cars, etc., are the people pushing. And to such an extent, it's become very, very competitive. You have China saying they want to be the first 5G saturated country in the world. America are fighting to beat them to the finish line and be first.
I'm assuming that the people who are at the heads of these companies who are pushing this technology into the marketplace, are they not aware that their health will be compromised by their desire for profit?
You would certainly think so. I find it quite strange and unbelievable that so many people high up in these organisations can have such ignorance of the evidence on health. I have spoken to a lot of people, decent, good people, who work for telecoms companies, not at the senior management level, and they all tell me the same thing. They're saying, when they find out about 5G, they are saying to me, why are my employers not telling me about the health implications? Why are they just telling me all the advantages of this technology I'm helping to build? Why are they not warning me of all the health aspects of it?
And you don't have an answer for that?
I don't have an answer for that. Whenever I have tackled anyone at a senior level in the telecoms industry, I get the same answer I've had from politicians and from the skeptics who believe 5G is perfectly safe. They all say we are operating within the safety standards.
The safety standards, which you just pointed out, are 22 years old.
Yeah.
In the UK, at least.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, we have known from the beginning of electricity. We know way back, 1840s, 1860s, there's been studies, ever since electricity began, there's been reports and studies on the health implications. Numerous reports, thousands of reports. Reports from 1932 recognised people in the population as electrosensitive, who are susceptible to picking up and being ill just from being near any form of electricity. Then we had radio frequencies in the First World War causing massive health problems for the soldiers who were beneath the transmitters. And then in the Second World War, with the implementation of radar, they called it radio sickness. They called it radar sickness. They didn't have another word for it, but it's all the same thing. And there is a whole range of health problems for people who are exposed to electromagnetic frequencies. Even taking just someone who's using a mobile phone. What happens when we buy a mobile phone? We get it out of the box, we charge it up, and buried in the box is a very folded up piece of paper, about this big, and you unfold it and it's about this big, and this is the terms and conditions of the mobile phone. 9 out of 10 people screw it up and throw it in the bin. But if you actually read the small print, and I mean read closely the small print, what does it say? It says never ever keep the phone on your person. It says switch it off at night. It says hold it at least an inch away from your ear and have limited use, and be very, very careful of children using it. So for the telecoms companies have to put these warnings into their literature. Otherwise they would be susceptible and taken to court. But what is very useful is if someone gets ill from using their mobile phone, or if they get ill because there's a mast outside their house and they go ill, if they try and get medical insurance to cover it, they can't. And why is that? It's because all the insurance companies have done their homework. They know exactly how dangerous these frequencies are, so they're not going to insure you if you get ill from EMF exposure.
Wow. I can also point out my mother died from glioblastoma, which is a type of brain cancer.
Yeah.
And I remember the neurologist when we were speaking, and I said to him, what causes this? He said, we have seen an increase in this particular type of, they don't even call it a malignancy because you die so rapidly from it. There has been such an increase in the use of cell phones that it has coincided directly with this increase in this particular type of brain tumor.
Yeah.
So that was the first sort of warning signal for me that there's something that I'm not able to see, touch, taste, hear, that's having a profound effect on my life and my family's lives. We've done an episode with Victor Sims, our mutual friend, where we've actually put monitors up and heard the sounds emitted by actually reading the dirty electricity in the room or the EMF frequencies that are in the room. So is there some sort of a gauge that we can use to see if there's 5G in our environment?
Well, not 5G as such. There are meters. You can buy meters from electrical stores that actually measure the output of electromagnetic radiation from things like cell phones and from laptops and from Wi-Fi modems. But the meter that can measure the 5G frequencies is under development. It's not released yet.
Interesting.
There are some in existence, apparently. I'm told that some of the major telecoms companies do have 5G meters, but they're not available for the public to buy at this stage.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's something we should keep an eye on and understand when those might potentially be purchasable. Joe, is there anything that, if you just sort of to bring this to a close, for people who are interested in this, where can we send them that they can do their own research into 5G and the potential dangers of it?
It's a good question. It's a huge subject. We can only scratch the surface today. Every single day there is more and more information, and simply by typing into Google dangers of EMF, dangers of 5G, dangers of electromagnetic radiation or 4G or cell phones, you'll get a huge amount of information. Not only that, almost in every town now across the UK, there's anti-5G groups and across the world, and they are collecting databases of all sorts of leaflets. If you go along to a meeting or a talk, I do talks myself, there is a massive amount of leaflets being put out on tables with all sorts of links to different websites. And I'd also encourage people to write to their MPs because as these 5G transmitters and masts are being put out on every street across the whole country, then some town councils have already declared a moratorium where they're actually saying they are not going to deploy 5G until there is independent research on the health and safety. And there's lots and lots of appeals which you can sign up to and get information about all these different aspects.
And I would say, write to congressmen, for the people in the states, and whoever your political advisors or representatives are, you can in fact write to them and demand that there be more health and safety research into 5G before it's deployed in your area.
Yeah, I mean, it's a responsibility of all town and city councils to protect the health of their citizens. And the telecoms companies are trying to have acts passed which allows them to override town councils so they can put a mast anywhere legally. And I've spoken to lots of town councils who are sympathetic to the 5G argument, but just say, I can't do anything about it because the law says the telecoms companies can override me. Well, if they say that, they need to check again, because in their own constitution, when they take the job of a town councillor and they sign up, they're given a book of their legal responsibilities, and one is to the health of their citizens. So they have to treat that, I would suggest, as a higher priority. We have to stop this because these type of frequencies can be likened to a slow suicide. This is where we're not going to get ill today or tomorrow. It's not like coronavirus in that respect. It's something that is damaging all of our bodily cells incrementally, more and more and more as these frequencies come out. Every single cell in our body communicates with every other cell to keep us healthy through electricity. We're electrical beings. And when those communications are broken down by intrusive toxic frequencies, our body cannot fight back and we get ill very quickly. So everyone should take this very, very seriously. You don't want smart meters. You don't want 5G. Don't sleep with mobile phones in your bedroom. Turn off your Wi-Fi at night. Make your use of cell phones limited. Hold it an inch from your ear. Certainly don't expose children, because their brains are 70% more water than ours, and they're like little mini antennas. They're much more susceptible to this. So just stay safe.
Well, thank you for actually illuminating this for us in a very clear way. And you are also available as a speaker, and we can provide a link where people can reach you if you're in the UK or would like to have.
Yeah, I'm carrying on researching this subject, and I am temporarily in lockdown with coronavirus. But when it passes by, hopefully sooner rather than later, then I shall be out speaking again and raising public awareness. So just saying, do your own homework.
Oh.
Don't rely on me. I'm not an expert. No one is an expert. But do your homework and find out the truth behind 5G. It's quite frightening.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you for joining us. And please do go Google 5G and the health dangers of 5G. We'll conclude here. Thank you for your hospitality and
pleasure.